In this video, we will cover some helpful tips and application strategies to best apply Flight Control Max to stop the drop and take back your turf from geese. Before we get into application strategies, it's important to know a little bit about the product itself. Archeon Life Sciences worked directly with the USDA Wildlife Services to search for a goose control product that would be most effective. We knew that to be most effective, it had to be something that was long-lasting and weatherproof, and Flight Control withstands the rain, sleet, and the snow once it has dried. It was important that it was odorless and also virtually undetectable by people, and very important that it worked without harming humans, wildlife, vegetation, or the water. Flight Control is people, pet, and eco-friendly. To work best, it had to be something that was persistent, that works 24/7, and most importantly, it had to effectively modify the goose's habitat and behavior. And that's why Flight Control is so effective, because it checks all of the boxes. Flight Control Max works in two ways. First is the visual warning. The active ingredient in Flight Control has a unique UV marker in it that the geese can see on the grass. They can tell the difference between turf that's been treated with Flight Control and turf that's untreated. The second way that it works is a post-digestive consequence. When the geese eat the turf treated with Flight Control, they experience a strong but harmless digestive irritation. It's a similar feeling to heartburn for people. Because the geese can see the product on the grass, they learn to associate it with grass that makes them feel uncomfortable and therefore grass that they want to avoid. The visual threat of seeing it, coupled with the digestive consequence they get from eating it, causes a learned behavior modification. Before making your application, you'll first want to define the drop zone. The drop zone is the active feeding area and is well defined by goose droppings. This is the part of the property where the geese are spending a majority of their time. Once you have defined the drop zone, you'll want to measure the square footage of this area. In this example, the drop zone is approximately 1,000 square feet. Remember, you'll always want to treat the entire drop zone plus a little bit of the area just beyond it. Flight Control Max is not meant to be a perimeter or a barrier spray. Knowing the square footage of the drop zone is critical to know how much Flight Control Max to mix with water to cover that entire area. Here's a quick chart to give you a reference guide for how much material to mix with water in your spray tank. 2 ounces of Flight Control Max mixed with a half gallon of water should cover approximately 1,000 square feet one time. It's important not to over dilute the product, or the geese may not react to it as they should. Next, we'll review some seasonal treatment strategies. You can have success starting a program any time of year, but your results may vary depending on when you get started. The number one goal of any goose prevention program is to stop them from nesting on your site. Ideally, you'll get your first application of the year down in the early spring, sometime in early February. You'll probably need to make about 2 or 3 applications during the springtime. This is the time when the geese are searching for a nesting site, and if you can prevent them from nesting on your site, you may have little to no bird pressure throughout the rest of the summer. If you successfully prevented them from nesting, you may have little to no bird pressure during the summer months and may require no applications. However, if there are still geese on the site, you'll probably need to make about 2 to 3 applications during these summer months. It's important to note that geese cannot fly during molt, which happens later in the summer, and adult geese will not leave the area until the goslings have learned how to fly. Once the geese have regained their flight feathers and the goslings have learned to fly, the geese will spend the next few months in their winter pond hopping routine. Typically, a flock will have 7 to 10 different feeding sites that they'll visit daily, spending up to 2 hours at each site. You'll likely need 2 to 3 applications during this time. You should make your final application of the year once the grass has gone dormant and you are done mowing the grass for the season. Because Flight Control Max is weatherproof, this final application should last several months until the spring and will prevent both migrating and residential geese from using the treated areas. Here are some tips for achieving the best results from your application of Flight Control Max. Because Flight Control Max is only removed from the turf from mowing, it's a good idea to mow the grass first and then apply flight control. After mowing the turf, remove any heavy clippings, feces, leaves, or other debris from the area. If possible, delay the next mowing to maximize the exposure. Flight control should only be sprayed on dry turf. Never apply to any grass that has any dew, frost, or snow. Do not apply 3 hours prior to rainfall or an irrigation cycle. Once the product has dried on the grass, it will be waterproof. Using the correct nozzle to apply flight control is critical. We only want to use a flat fan tip nozzle, trying to create the smallest possible droplet size. Ideally, we'd have a fine mist that would cover the turf entirely and evenly. Never apply flight control in any windy conditions to avoid possible drift onto unwanted surfaces. Flight control could potentially stain unwanted surfaces, so we want to avoid the wind to prevent that. If you happen to get any flight control on an unwanted surface, you can still wipe it off if you do so immediately. Once you've mixed the Flight Control Max in your water, you want to shake the tank vigorously. Once you're done spraying, always empty, rinse, and clean your sprayer and nozzles after each use. Lastly, we want to keep any activity, that's pets and people, out of the treated area until the product has completely dried. We want to avoid removing the product from the turf, from our feet, and from our pets' paws. Always wear proper protective equipment when applying flight control, and be sure to read the safety instructions on your bottle prior to any application. Here are some additional application techniques to get best results with flight control. First, shake the bottle of flight control before mixing it with the water. Add the appropriate amount of water to your spray tank first, and then add the appropriate amount of Stop the Drop. Mix the two in the sprayer thoroughly by shaking for at least 1 minute. Instead of holding the wand of the sprayer directly above the grass, we should keep the nozzle about knee and waist height, about 2 to 3 feet above the ground, to allow the fine mist to float down onto the grass blades. This will help the product dry quickly once it hits the grass and cover it more evenly. Do not wave your arm in a zigzag type motion when spraying. Instead, keep your arm locked and steady to the hip, walking back and forth in straight lines. This will make sure that we avoid missing any areas and will promote more uniform of a coverage. The nozzle on most pumps are either interchangeable or adjustable. You want to set the nozzle of your sprayer to as fine of a mist as it can create. Stop the Drop must be applied with a flat fan tip nozzle. This is necessary to produce a fine mist that will dry quickly once it hits the grass blades. Avoid any activity in the treated area for at least 1 hour after application. And lastly, never leave any leftover product in your spray tank after spraying. You always want to clean and rinse your spray tank immediately after use. To clean the nozzles, rinse fresh water through it until it sprays clear. What you should expect after your flight control application. Allow the geese to forage on the treated turf. It typically takes geese about an hour to digest and start to feel the digestive discomfort that flight control causes. Geese usually react to it by honking, shaking their heads, and flapping their wings before eventually making their way to the water where they feel safest. Since the geese can see flight control on the turf, they quickly learn that the unusual looking grass is what caused them the digestive discomfort. They will remember this unique UV marker and learn to avoid turf where they can see it. Without the ability to feed, they are forced to find and feed in alternative areas. Most of the flock will need to be exposed to the treated area. The conditioning process is usually pretty quick and may take as little as 24 hours, but could take up to 2 to 3 days depending on the specific site and the bird pressure. For more information or any questions, please contact us. You can give us a call at 877-55-GEESE. You can send an email to info@flightcontrol.com or visit us on the web, flightcontrol.com. Take back your turf with Flight Control Max and stop the drop once and for all.